Well, Charles, welcome back. You're on the Gold Coast last week and you've got two ears, which I'm surprised because when you got to those seminars, people talk your ear off, don't they?
Yeah, look, it happens. A lot of people want to know a lot of things and some people come up with some great ideas. People come up with some concepts on our existing ideas. It's never-ending conversation for 3 days. It's really quite fantastic. Great feedback.
So that was an opportunity, for anyone in the Century 21 group to come together and share ideas?
Correct. And to listen to speakers. Our theme was very much around the digital revolution, or as I was calling it, the digital disruptors. And I was corrected by David Mayer from CoreLogic and Graham Mirabito, ex-CEO of CoreLogic, who joined me on stage as my guests. They called it a constructive evolution. So there you go.
Oh, they put a positive spin on it.
They did. And I started looking at it from that angle, and I started seeing some ways that we could utilise these so-called disruptors to benefit the business. And it is an interesting process.
So in a nutshell, what are some ways we could benefit?
Well, from a real estate industry perspective, when you look at it from that point of view, there are sites out there called buymyplace.com.au, and they do a great job. They're probably the most successful site of the private sales, that they get a lot of people who go to them and then decide to use a real estate practitioner. So there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
There's also, from our point of view, if we have clients that might have been there for a little bit longer and they feel that the pricing may not work for them, or what the agent's doing may not work for them, well, there's an opportunity for them to go to a private website to determine whether or not they're getting the right level of service to market their home. So it gives us a chance as real estate practitioners to view it from both angles. The cost of generating activity in a real estate business, for instance, finding somebody who'd like to sell, that can be a very, very big cost. There are organisations out there that are driving these private organisations and forwarding these leads onto qualified real estate practitioners. So in many respects, there's an opportunity to, yes, pay for somebody who might want to sell, but at the same time not have to expend time and money in finding them yourselves. So there's many ways to look at it, Nick.
13 12 83. Charles Tarbey's here tonight. If you have any questions regarding real estate, he's here. Whether you're buying, selling, investing, only about 2 weeks until in fact, not even, about 10 days until we hit June 30 and the end of the financial year. Sometimes it brings on a little bit of flurry, or some people are holding and sitting on their hands. But whatever might be happening in your life, 13 12 83. Charles can help you out tonight. Now, given that you're fresh back from the Gold Coast, the land of the great white shoe, what do you think of the market up there?
Well, it was in the doldrums for an awfully long time, and they were drawing parallels between an apartment on the Gold Coast and other things, which I can't mention on the show. But
yes,
I think,
I've heard that. Yes. Best you leave that out.
So I'm doing that for sure.
Well done. Good editorial decision, Charles.
I wish I was this politically correct when I was actually working in my office. I have to start reviewing the way I do things. The most important thing with the Gold Coast, I think that certainly the Commonwealth Games has given it some stimulus, but apart from that, there was a massive oversupply of apartments, and as people's equity started to increase in all other capital cities, the Gold Coast started to look like a really, really easy proposition to get into. And I think not just the Commonwealth Games, but more so the fact that it has sat idle for so long while other capital cities have grown. And as young Sam, the producer, was talking to me about, he said to me that the Gold Coast is one of the largest cities in Australia. It might even be bigger than Adelaide. Or I don't know for sure, but
oh no, nothing's bigger than Adelaide.
No, I don't. I don't mean Adelaide's brilliant for food and wine and
good,
structure. The way that the city's laid out, for sure.
I got a soft spot for it. Yeah, but it certainly is. Look, for sure. I think Gold Coast is well in excess of 500,000 people now.
Look, it's moving along very strongly, and I think again the hinterland is one of the strong areas as well. A lot of people looking for lifestyle there that don't want to be part of the mainstream, entertainment sector. So there are people moving there. I met a young couple recently that have bought a block of land up there. They're Sydney based and they're moving up there looking for work, and they're going to build a home on their block of land up in the hinterland. So I think you'll see a lot of people seeing the value in those areas.
And I think it's important to remember that the Gold Coast sits obviously between Brisbane and the Tweed and Byron Bay. So it's not just Gold Coast. I mean, it's very close to a whole bunch of things.
Yes.
So that whole coastal run really from the top of northern New South Wales, that Rivers district, right up to Brisbane. I'm guessing that's probably about 150, 120 kilometres.
Well, it is a massive area, and there's a lot of pristine beaches along the way as well. Yeah. Look, unlike, say, the Sunshine Coast, which we talked about a few times, it's a lot more crowded. I mean, it's got its airport there, and there's a lot more activity. The drivers that took me from the airport to the Marriott Hotel, which is where we had the conference, said that there were 50 traffic lights we had to get through to get there.
Gee.
And I think that may be the only drawback, given the fact that we've got so many people coming into that area for the Commonwealth Games. I'm not sure whether they're going to be coming in via Brisbane or via the airport on the Gold Coast. I'm not sure how they're going to do that.
I know there's about 31,000 people in the marathon. Maybe they're going to run in. Could be.
From Brisbane. Yeah, jump and catch their flight straight out.
So what about vacancy rates? What do you know about those on the Gold Coast? There's so many apartments, loads of them. It's a traditional holiday hangout. But, you know, when it comes to tenancies across the year, ongoing ones, what's it like?
Yeah, look, it doesn't give you, obviously, a balanced impact, because when it's on the Gold Coast, it's really on. And the rentals are fantastic. But it's not always like that. You get a clearer picture with vacancy rates in capital cities like Melbourne or Sydney or Perth, because there's a steady flow there. And they've been very, very strong. Sydney was always leading, or mostly leading the way, but Melbourne's kicked in this last week and come in at 0.64% vacancy rate, which is just amazing. Sydney's at 1.49, and the capital city I talk about most being Perth, it was up over the 10s, and it's been nudging back slowly, and it came at 7.57% in terms of vacancy rates, and the average over those three capital cities is 3.23%. So all in all, pretty good. Good to see Perth coming back.
Yeah, it is. Look, you've only been doing this show here, I think, maybe for 10 to 12 weeks, and I'm pretty sure from memory that when we first started talking about Perth, vacancy rates were up near 10%.
They were 10 plus for quite some time, and they've steadily come back. I think the market's finding its feet over there. There's still a bit of movement downward in price in some areas, but one of our best offices in Australia is located in Perth, and their quarter just gone is the busiest quarter since they've been in business, and they've been in business for a reasonably good period of time. Yeah. So I think the adjustment is starting to occur.
Okay, good stuff. Property Fast Track with Charles Tarbey tonight, 13 12 83. That's the number. He can help you out. Still ahead tonight around the grounds. We'll check out the scene in Newcastle and in Gympie even. It sounds like Chimney, doesn't it? We'll also talk to Tom Panos, who's an auctioneer, and check out the clearance rates across the weekend. There are some great advantages in being the world's largest real estate company. For a start, your Century 21 local office uses the best technology and knowledge base in the world. Combined with the fact that each office is independently owned and operated, your local Century 21 agent knows your city, your suburb, your town and your street. It also means Century 21 agents can offer a huge range of resources and experience, including information from over 300 offices around the country. It's no surprise Century 21 is the fastest growing real estate brand in Australia. Buying, selling or looking for a new home to rent? Contact your local Century 21 office and find out why they really are smarter, bolder, faster. Visit century21.com.au. Well and truly into June, almost the end of the financial year, and that means it's tax time. And if you own investment properties, there are all kinds of tax implications and opportunities to think about right now. While the value of your investment property is increasing year on year, certain assets within the property are doing the opposite. They're going backwards or depreciating. And, of course, you can claim the cost of a depreciating asset, which helps to minimise your tax bill. Brad Beer is the CEO of BMT Tax Depreciation, one of the best in the business at this, and Brad is on board tonight. G'day, Brad. How are you?
Great. Thanks. For yourself?
Yeah, we're going well.
Hello, Brad. Charles here. Nice to hear your voice as well, even though it comes from a very high above me. Brad is 6'6" tall. Is it 6'6", Brad, or 6'8"?
6'7", actually.
Oh, my God.
6'7". You must have played a bit of basketball over the years, Brad.
A little bit in my earlier life, yes.
When I get a photograph taken with Brad at any awards function, I ask for a head and shoulder shot, my head and his shoulders.
Yeah.
You know, that's about what it's like.
You should get a milk crate.
Brad, be a good time of the year for you? Good time of the year for investors?
Look, good time for us. Lots of investors, obviously, buying depreciation schedules. And also, I am an investor, so good time for me because I'm getting more tax deductions through the depreciation, of course.
And Brad, there's you and I spoke about this many years ago about whether the government interference may change the way in which this occurs, and that there has been a little bit of interference with that style of business, but there's still some confusion out there. Tell us a little bit about what you can or can't claim and what sort of properties you might be able to utilise.
Look, the confusion, yes, because they mess around with the rules, and whenever you mess with the rules, there's confusion. But I think even before rule changes, there's always a bit of confusion because it's something that people don't understand. People are buying properties for them to increase in value, but, your carpet still wears out. So the depreciation claim that's there because of the wear and tear on the property and the things within it is something that can be confusing and something that a lot of people just don't do to the extent they can. But, things like the carpets, the hot water service, the stoves, the blinds, the curtains, and the bricks and mortar, for that matter, providing the age is right, get some sort of depreciation claim that relates to wear and tear of these items and non-cash tax deduction, which means more cash at tax time for property investors.
So, Brad, when it comes to claiming depreciation in these sorts of situations, is it only on newly purchased properties, or let's say you bought a property that's 100 years old? Can you still claim depreciation on the items contained within it?
So the simple answer is yes, usually. I think new property definitely gets the most deductions, and with these budget changes, older property, it's changed a bit. But I think the first thing to always think is there might be some money there, so let's work out how much it might be. So don't worry about the age, except when you're buying. Obviously, you need to know how many deductions might be there because you should be crunching these numbers. But old property still gets some deductions. It's a few more of them don't based on these budget changes that have just happened. But any property's potentially got some deductions there that you've just got to ask about, whether you're going to get it or not, really.
So you mentioned brickwork there. What about, deterioration of a roof, for example?
When I say, brickwork, anything just about within the property has some sort of claim related to it. I mean, the fundamentals are that, you construct something, you buy something that's there. There's a depreciation claim on, what we call fixtures, and the other part is on the brickwork. And it's actually like the whole envelope of the building, really. The concrete floors, walls, roof, the fence even, for example, outside. Everything except for things like soft landscaping and land, obviously, because it's not part of the building, potentially has some claim available. Some things depend on the age, yes, but if it's a new property, the roof. If it's a property built after 1987.
Okay. And Brad, from your perspective, you pretty much guarantee that whatever somebody pays you for a depreciation report, they're going to do a lot better than the cost of that depreciation report.
Look, absolutely. There's a fee. The guarantees are double the fee and deductions in the first year. It's free. So if we can't find some deductions, obviously we don't want to do it. And then if we think there's enough there, we will tell you to go ahead and do it. And if we're wrong, then we should wear that.
Well, that's pretty good guarantee.
Pretty easy. And we ask you a few questions about your property. And look, if it is 100 years old and no one's done any work to it, there's not going to be any deductions there. So we ask a few questions to make sure there's going to be some deductions there before we go ahead in the first place. I've
got a question for you because this is one that I really don't know the answer to, and it's certainly an unprompted question from my perspective. If you do work at your own home, how does that impact whether or not depreciation is possible in some respect?
It's actually a regular question, Charles.
Oh, sorry, mate. I just thought about it then.
No, but it's a good one. People that often ask. And if work's done to the property, so there's two components of the way that you claim depreciation, but then there's another separate part about repairs and maintenance. Things that you do yourself that are repairs and maintenance, or someone else does them, are claimable on property straight away. But if they're real improvements, they've got to be appreciated over time. Now, if you do the work yourself, regardless of the type of the work, you've still gone and bought, let's say, whatever it is you're going to put in. So it should be having some depreciation available to that. The only difference is you didn't pay yourself for the time to put it in. So you can't depreciate your time to put it in, but you can depreciate the items that you've put in that investment property, absolutely.
Okay, so just to be clear, you can depreciate some additions or some improvements on the home, on your principal place of residence.
Yes, and regardless, no, not on your home, not your principal place of residence.
No.
Sorry.
So that was my question actually, Brad, because I'm trying to say if people work from home, their profession actually works from home. It's a really odd one, isn't it?
Yes, work.
Well,
sorry, I took that as work on your home.
Oh, sorry, my boy. No, work from your home, and I couldn't see an angle to it, but maybe there is.
There is. If you're working from home, then some of the costs of owning your home may become deductible if you using half of your home as a income producing property and half of your home you're living in. Then maybe half of your deductions for interest.
What about a granny flat?
Deductible.
What about a granny flat?
Granny flat's a separate piece of the home that if it's being used for income producing purposes, it comes down to use for income producing purposes.
Fantastic. I am sure there are a significant number of people that, including myself, that would not have known that. So.
You probably want to be aware, though, and this is general advice because I'm not an accountant, but if you sold that place and you claimed depreciation, then that may affect being capital gains tax free.
Yeah, so that's the other component is if you as soon as you bring tax and make things investment properties, then you're potentially playing with the fact that capital gains tax could be applicable in some way. But if other deductions are there, the depreciation is one of those deductions. It gets split, but yes, always be aware of that capital gains tax issue that could be about, which is just a discussion with your accountant.
Yeah,
we or the accountant with all the other costs, but we can easily come up with how much depreciation it might be, but you've still got to go and calculate the whole thing and make sure it's worth it, which your accountant will be able to run through the numbers and calculate what the CGT would be, etc., if necessary.
Brad, how much does it cost to get a depreciation report from you?
Depreciation schedules, they cost $770.
Yep.
So they're a tax-deductible fee, and of course that guarantees there if you don't get some deductions, you don't get deductions that are twice that, you don't do it. I guess the other important thing on how much the cost is, that fee being deductible, we're coming up to 30 June. There's a couple of things like the fee is deductible in the year you do it. So if you're going to need it for your tax return, you're better off buying it in June than July because it's deductible this year instead of next year.
All right, so that involves you coming out to the home, obviously, and going through paperwork with a fine-tooth comb, so you're fully aware of what things can be deducted and possibly looking for things that the owner might miss themselves.
Look, we will come out to the home and do an inspection, yes. As far as the paperwork's concerned, the reason, we're actually a quantity surveyor, which is a building estimator, and the reason we get involved is because if you don't know all the costs, if you buy a property that's 5 years old, you don't know how much it costs, and you don't actually have all that paperwork from building it.
Yeah.
So we actually will go in and pull it apart based on the visit as opposed to just the paperwork. Make sure we find everything that's deductible and put that into the depreciation schedules, which, we don't do all the tax. We just do the depreciation parts. There's part of what the accountant puts together is depreciation with all the lots of other numbers that when you're doing your tax return.
Brad, you mentioned before, people can get maybe 2 to 3 times what it might cost them. What sort of average return should somebody expect on say, a 10-year-old average $600,000 home?
Look, an average 10-year-old home for $600,000 probably should get between $7,000 and $9,000 a year in the early years of owning that property. So it's still quite substantial deductions, even in a 10-year-old home. The overall average across all the reports we've done last year was the first full year was about $10,000.
Yeah.
Obviously, it gets a little bit less as the property gets older, but $10,000 is the average across all the reports, all ages.
Fantastic. Got your mobile phone number here, Brad. You want me to give it out? No.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll tell you what.
Spare you, mate. I'll spare.
You can call us on 13 12 83, and we'll pass Brad's number on to you because it's a fascinating topic you've helped us through here, Brad. It's something I wasn't really aware of to the detail that's required as you've unpacked for us. So thank you.
No problem. After 19 years, I've got all these people, when you say you're a quantity surveyor, still look at you a little bit funny, and then you say depreciation, they think, doesn't it?
Good on you. Yeah. Brad,
what does that?
Can before I let you go, can take me out to lunch? Can we depreciate that lunch somehow, somewhere? I just have no idea. Look, thank you very much, Brad. Always good to speak to you. Thank you.
Brad Beer, CEO of BMT Tax Depreciation. Might depreciate your your brain capacity, depending on how much imbibing you do.
I'd appreciate the amount of wine that he gets compared to me. That might be the best way of running it.
Property Fast Track tonight. Charles Tarbey with you, Nick Bennett as well. 13 12 83, and that phone call right there for you. That number for you to make a call to Charles tonight and guide you through anything you've got when it comes to property. We'll go around the grounds in a moment to Newcastle and Gympie.
And Stewart, yeah.
Nick Bennett tonight, Charles Tarbey, 13 12 83 as we do Property Fast Track. Charles, we'll just have a bit of fun off the air about that great Aussie movie, The Castle, because I said to you, have you got a Century 21 office at Mount Buller? And you said, where is that? I said, well, it's in the Victorian High Country.
Yeah, the snow.
Not far from Lake Eildon.
Yeah, where Bonnie Doon is.
Bonnie Doon is.
That's, we're all going to Bonnie Doon. And it was a funny story because the property that they had there went up for sale. And the agent kept complaining about the fact, or he was quite jovial about it. People will ring up and ask how much they're asking, and he said, how much asking? You tell them the price, and they go, dreaming, and hang up. So he copped a fair bit of that.
That's classic.
It's very good.
Let's go around the ground, speaking of travel, and we're going to head up to Newcastle right now. Wayne Stewart from Century 21. Thanks for joining us, Wayne.
My pleasure.
G'day, Wayne. Wayne's the ex-president of Real Estate Institute of New South Wales. Very, very long history in real estate and a very big team in the Newcastle region. Been there for a very, very long time.
It's a good spot, Newcastle. Wayne, how's it going?
Yeah, look, we're still bubbling along nicely there, probably off the back of Sydney. We're finding a lot of people that are actually coming out of Sydney now seeking probably a better value for money and a good lifestyle.
The lifestyle there has changed significantly from the old, steel works and so on. When you go there now, last time I went there, Wayne, there's some beautiful restaurants, lots of wonderful accommodation, B&B. Tell us why you would live in that area yourself, why you would buy in that area, or why people should buy in that area.
Well, look, Newcastle, I mean, the greater area of Newcastle, it covers a big area, the lower Hunter Valley. But Newcastle CBD, where my office is based, basically, we've got our version of Darling Harbour along the foreshore there, where it's, for probably about 2 kilometres, it's restaurants and boutique pubs and that sort of thing, as Charles said. Mm-hmm. And, the unique thing about there is you can sit there having your cafe latte and watch this 5-storey tanker sail by on the harbour, ready to load up its coal. So it's a pretty unique place. Yeah, sure is.
And some beautiful old architecture there. I love the brickwork, especially in the old part of Newcastle.
Yeah, well, look, whilst people may criticise the government and local councils for a lot of those older buildings, that's one of the beauties of Newcastle, is that it's the contrast between the history of the place and the modern buildings that are necessary work very well in Newcastle.
Are you seeing conversions of some of those big old buildings being, say, turned into modern apartment complexes?
Most definitely, and a very controversial one in the hub of Newcastle, right in the CBD, which is the old David Jones building, is about to be converted into apartments as we speak.
Wow, and what would I need to pay for one of those, say, a two-bedder?
That's always a good question, that one.
Yeah, 2 bedrooms. Look, you're probably going to be looking around the 6 to 7 for a basic one, and anything that's got a view probably up around the $1 million mark now.
Wow.
That's extraordinary when you think about it, but the road system all the way up to there is gotten so much better, hasn't it, Wayne? And they're trying to bypass much of that area with the highway going. I think it's bypassing so many small villages all the way up through Nabiac. It goes right past you there. But the access for you get people working in that area, living in that area that will move all the way down to Sydney or catch trains all the way down to Sydney for work?
Yeah, most definitely, Charles. We talk about in Newcastle that Sydney's just another suburb of Newcastle now, so just a southern suburb. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that commute by the rail, and there's a lot of people that take the journey by car every day.
And what's your vacancy rate like at the moment?
Vacancy rate in the city is sitting around 2%. It's been sitting around that for a couple of years now, so it's quite healthy. Yeah.
Growth forecast now, they're talking about the market slowing down overall across Sydney and other capital cities. Would you say that your area is going to continue to grow based on the fact that wave out of Sydney is kicking in, Wayne?
Most definitely. We've had annual growth of about 13.8% over the last 12 months in the city.
That's fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, it has been remarkable and has been double-digit for a few years. But look, it's probably gone down into single digits for the next 12 months, and we're probably estimating probably down around 7 to 8%.
Just one more quick question from me. I know Nick's got a question for you as well. If I was to buy a 3-bedroom brick home with a lock-up garage in an average suburb, what would I pay for it, and what sort of rental return would I get?
Well, very contrasting here, Charles, because Bar Beach, which is a suburb of Newcastle, has just hit the 2.7 million for median price. If you go out to Mayfield, your median price is about 5.10. So your average around the city would probably be around the mid-6s.
Wow, that is just unbelievable, isn't it?
Charles, you've taken my question.
Oh,
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, not at all.
Okay. Well, Wayne, it's always wonderful to speak to you. Wayne has got an incredible wealth of knowledge, not just in his area, but right across what the real estate industry needs to do.
Good stuff. Thank you, Wayne. Wayne Stewart from Century 21 Newcastle. Appreciate it. So let's have a look at what's happening in Gympie, which is, a little north of Brisbane. It's
extraordinary, isn't it? We can go from one part of the country to the other. I love doing this each week because we do pick some very, very interesting places. I love that part of town. I love going up into just off the coast, the Sunshine Coast, through Yamundi, the famous Yamundi markets.
That's right.
All the way up to a very dynamic individual in Billy Mitchell, who's been growing his business just exponentially over the last few years.
Hello, Billy. How are you?
Good evening, Nick and Charles. Very well, thank you.
Billy, I'm sorry, but sorry to interrupt you.
Not at all, mate.
Nick used to send all of his tapes around to get work, and one of the places was the radio station in Gympie.
That's right.
What I found out about Billy was that he worked in and on radio for 8 or 9 years. Isn't that right, Billy?
Oh, a couple of years, mate. I did a little bit of volunteer work down at Foster Sun.
Oh, you were puffing your chest out at conference. I thought you'd done a lot more than that. But anyway, look, that's still
I thought you might have had some time at 4GY, Billy. On the radio.
Sorry, mate, I missed that.
I thought you may have been at 4GY for a while in Gympie.
4GY, good little local station here, but I've done a little bit of work with those guys, but not a lot.
So tell us why people buy in your area, Billy. Why do people migrate up to your area to live and cut out a lifestyle?
Oh, well, I think the simple answer to that value. There's something for everyone in Gympie. Obviously we're 2 hours drive north of Brisbane. We're an hour north of the Sunshine Coast, which includes Noosa and Mooloolaba. The highway's just about to reach us now, so we've got a 4-lane highway basically through to the border of the Gold Coast. It's a great country town with, like I say, something for everyone, young and old. So, really good spot.
What's the population roughly now there, Billy?
So 20,000 direct of Gympie, and our greater region covers about 50,000. That gets out to Rainbow Beach, Kincam Bay, and those areas. So I can be in Gympie and be on the barge to Fraser Island in about an hour. So it's pretty popular with the field of fishermen around the place.
Yeah, righto. Very good. And what about industry? What what is employing people up there?
So the beef industry is very strong. Obviously, dairy production goes along with that. Forestry. We got a lot of macadamia farms, small crops. The Nestle factories here. So basically, if you have a cup of Nescafe in New Zealand or Australia, that's here for the good folk of Gympie. We've got quite a strong presence with those guys and a lot of employment through them. So that's just a few, but we're certainly not relying on any one industry, which is why I believe we're a good investment. Well,
let's talk money, Billy. Let's talk about the median price of a home in that area.
Yeah, so median price at the moment is $249,000, which is quite unbelievable, I think, which is up 2% from last year. The average rent in the area is $280, $290 per week.
Wow.
You can certainly buy a good quality 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home on an acre for the low 300s, which is, I think, fantastic buying.
And a lot of new built homes, or are you still running on existing stock?
No, a lot of new build homes. I think the new build, which is the homeowners grant, which has been really positive for our area. We've seen the most homes built here since 2006, in 2016 and early in 2017. So a lot of new stuff, and obviously the old stuff keeps ticking over. The entry level in Gympie, unbelievably, you can still buy a home around the $200,000. So.
That's the entry level. And are you getting people downsizing coming further north from Brisbane? Yeah,
for sure. I think that's a lot of our market now is people that can get out of the the Brisbane or the Sunshine Coast, if you like, get a similar quality home here, and obviously have some money in the bank and hopefully spend their kids' inheritance.
And Billy, when the rest of that highway comes through, and as you know what that does, infrastructure does to an area, how long do you think it would take you to jump in your car and head down to Noosa?
Oh, look, Noosa shouldn't be any more than 45 minutes, Charles.
Yeah.
I was in Mooloolaba in an hour only 2 weeks ago. So,
and it'd be a pleasant drive too.
Getting close to the coast every day, which is really positive. And once the highway goes around us, the next little place on the water is Tin Can Bay and Rainbow Beach. So I think those areas will certainly strengthen.
And you've got those areas covered as well from your operation.
Yeah, I do. I'm lucky enough to have an office in Tin Can Bay as well as Gympie. So, we get out there quite a bit and, obviously love the area.
Yeah, okay. Look, thanks, Billy. I'm getting the impression you might like your fishing.
I do, mate. I do. Yep. Fantastic area for that.
Oh, congratulations on your success, Billy, and thank you very much for updating us on the Gympie area.
Appreciate it. Cool. Thanks.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Billy Mitchell from Century 21 in Gympie, which is quite near Nambour, and from memory I think that's home of the Big Pineapple, Charles, but I reckon that closed down.
I haven't seen the Big Pineapple. I've seen the Big Banana, and I've seen the Big Prawn and the Big Merino, but I haven't seen the Big Pineapple.
Oh, put that on your list. Put that on your bucket list. Charles Tarbey's here tonight, 13 12 83, as we do Property Fast Track, taking your calls.
Reduce your mortgage, then holiday in Japan. For a chance to win a $10,000 trip to Japan, plus $10,000 off your home, be the first correct caller with the code word on 1300 385 859. Helen Wong's Tours. You can't go wrong with Helen Wong.
Nick Bennett tonight, and Charles Tarbey's here if you're buying, selling or investing. He's here to take your calls and help you through 13 12 83. Now, how can it be? Has the sizzle finally come out of Sydney's piping hot property market? Sydney recorded an auction clearance rate below 70% for the second weekend in a row, the lowest fortnightly result since 2015. Melbourne fared a bit better, recording a clearance rate of 75%, a sign that a winter chill has descended on the market. Were these hot markets due to catch a cold? Let's chat with Tom Panos, an auctioneer and a 2-decade veteran of the business. Tom knows what's going on. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Nick. How you going? And hi, Charles.
Good evening, Tom.
Good. We're going well, mate. Now, it was a weekend where there was plenty of activity, but Sydney nonetheless has recorded 2 weekends in a row with a clearance rate below 70%. Is that worth noting?
Absolutely. And I would even go on and say that, Nick, that numbers actually don't even tell the full story, because I think that you'll find is that the 7 out of 10 properties that have sold, as reported, were absolute grinds, I would say, for a lot of real estate agents there. Gone are the days where there is the auctioneer and the real estate agents sort of sitting by watching a marketplace have total competition. We're actually seeing 1 bidder auctions, 2 bidder auctions, and I certainly did a number of auctions on the weekend that only had 1 participant in there. Some of those properties still sold, so you'll see that those will be reported. But I think as surplus of stock keeps increasing in the market, Charles and Nick, I think that you're going to find that clearance rate will probably even soften further.
Okay.
Yeah, look, it's been an interesting time. When we looked at the stats today, Tom, they picked up when you look at the ones sold after auction. So Sydney actually hit 72.4%. When you look at the overall, Melbourne went backwards a little bit. But they're still very good clearance rates. But you're right, you're having to work for these. And actually, that's the sort of marketplace we've been begging for over a year. And the drop in interest rates caused another flurry in the marketplace that we had all hoped wouldn't occur, because that's where the prices pushed a little bit further than they should have. Yeah,
well said. I think, Charles, what's happened is and I may have mentioned it last time, the best way to describe it is that there's this hot air balloon that's had a lot of hot air up in the sky, and that hot air is no longer there, but the balloon's still up there, because the truth is that there's been buyers that have missed out on other properties, and interest rates are still low. So you're still seeing transactions going, But that balloon is not being kept up there by hot air. But
No. Some of the there was a launch of a couple of apartment complexes off the plan in Sydney. They were snapped up. People were camping overnight. So it's still really, there are certain marketplaces that are still very, very strong, and others that are starting to level out. And it's that leveling out that levels out not just prices, it levels out the entire industry, Tom.
Yeah, Charles, I tell you, and Nick, this would be an interesting thing for you.
Yeah.
I had a number of properties that the buyers said they would bid and buy them on the basis that we would date the contract July 1 or afterwards, because they wanted to get the stamp duty concession on properties up to 650. One particularly was in Lidcombe. The buyer said, look, I'll bid at this price, which was an increase of 25,000, but I want you to date the contract July 1. We said we can't do that, then that would not make it an auction property. So there is a group of people that I think are going to pop up out of the woodwork for under $650,000 properties, because it's a saving of about 25 grand at that level.
But they're generally not the ones that are going to impact on clearance rates.
No, they're not, because those properties are traditionally not the auction type properties. But I think, Charles, that, you know, like, there is a group of people that are probably thinking, I've got $650 to spend. I might actually buy a property because I'm 25 grand ahead. So we might see a bit of energy, not in auctions, but in the number of first home buyer inquiries in July. But I don't know whether that's sustainable or whether that's going to be the fad. Hey, we've got a 25 grand grant from the government. Let's take advantage of it.
Tom, something a bit different. At the other end of the market, there was a sale over the weekend through the public administrator where a place went to auction and was sold $2 million above reserve. A bit of a dramatic story here. Tell us about it.
Yeah, look, I think it's... Look, the exact number over reserve, I'm not quite sure. I think that number's correct. It actually sold for $6 million. What makes the story very interesting is that it was a bidding war between a father and a son, and it was at the property. The wife was found dead in the foot of a staircase a number of years ago, and there's been a dispute between the father and the son over a $40 million fortune. And what happened is on Saturday, that property went to auction, and out of the blue came the father, who had not shown any interest, and it was a bidding war between him and the son, who obviously aren't talking. They're in a dispute, and the father won. And apparently, I wasn't there, but this has been noted. As he won the bidding, he went on to say something along the lines of, "She never wanted to die here," and it was quite a bit of commotion. The property was in Coogee.
Yeah, sad story out of the Sunday Telegraph, and apparently the old fella built it, so he wanted to keep the home alive in the family, but we hope they work it out.
Tom, how are you going for the upcoming weeks with auctions now that we're in the first real estate winter we've had in 5 years?
It's the strongest winter I've got in terms of properties coming on the market, Charles, and that says to me that there's a lot of vendors who are thinking they're chasing the tailwind of what they see as a boom. Normally, Charles, the weekends are a lot freer for me over the winter months, but I've noticed that I've got a fair bit of stock on. Like, I'm pretty booked out every weekend through to July.
Yeah, well, of course, there's a reason for that, Tom. There's a reason you're always booked out. But I think it's great to see that more stock coming on again. But the agents have to work. You and I both know, as an auctioneer myself, going back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, where you worked your heart out to get somebody to bid, and the agents disappeared on you because it went really quiet when there was only one bidder in the room.
Yeah, well, look, Charles, for me, it's also good, because I've got to say, I've been someone that has been spoilt over the last 3-4 years, because I come along, I hang around at an auction for 5 minutes, the market puts the deal together, and then I move on. 30 minutes later, I'm doing another auction. It's not like that. That's not a real life, Charles. You know it. The real life is a grind. You're grinding up buyers, you're grinding and educating sellers to accept the reality of the marketplace. And I'm happy that it's sort of come, because I think that there'll be more turnover, and I think it's great for people that are buyers that have been struggling to get into the marketplace, because I've also seen the absence of investors in recent times, a big absence of investors.
Tom, we are out of time, sadly, but it's great to get your thoughts on things. Thank you so much for sharing tonight.
Thank you again, Tom. You're brilliant. Thank you.
Auctioneer Tom Panos on Property Fast Track. Charles Tarbey, we appreciate your time as well. You're back next Monday.
Thank you very much.
Let's hope you can squeeze in a few rounds of golf between here and next week.
In the winter time. Love it.
I'm sure you will. Appreciate it, mate.
Nick.
Thank you. Stay with us. Plenty ahead tonight, including Talking Technology with Trevor Long. And we'll talk to Matthew Takaki straight after the news at 8.